Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to breakfast after my brother. After breakfast with my brother. How's that? I'm all alone here. I'm all alone. I'm all alone. I've done my time. The revolutionary. That is the incorrect one. That is the incorrect one. And this is the one we want. Of which that is not the one. Okay, I guess I have a visitor. Hello, Melissa. I'm trying to just figure stuff out. I'm trying to find my story. I found it, and I thought I had saved it to another file, but I didn't. Could have swore I did. What do I know? Uh, nope. I got to read it this way. Okay. So, I just got back from breakfast with my brother. The waitress is absolutely hilarious because she refuses to take our order until it's a certain time. Today, she waited longer. She said, "Well, I want you to stay longer." And then she says, "How many more readings do you have to go before we go live at the restaurant here?" I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, because, you know." I said, "Oh, you want to be a star, do you?" And she said, "Yes, I'm going to wear my brightest, best lipstick." Like, really? He said, "Yeah, she's a funny one. She's a fun one." And this is the only reason we go for breakfast at that particular place is because of her, because she makes us giggle and laugh. And yeah, she's fun. So, being that, it is now Tuesday. And looking out the old weather window, I don't even have to do that. Let me see. It was 24 degrees this morning as I was driving in for breakfast at 8:30. Now it's 28 degrees. It's 10:15ish. Okay, 20 after. Yeah. Well, according to the old, what do you call it? Walk. That's the word. 10:19. There we go. Let me see what I have for news. I have a book. I actually have two books actually out. That was an accident. I didn't do that on purpose. I have my trilogy, and then I was preparing my book, my serial, The Shield of Locksley. I was preparing that because I wanted to make it into a hardcover and a paperback, and so I uploaded the file, and it immediately makes it into an ebook. And rather than asking me when I wanted to release it, it just released it, and I went, "Oh, okay." So now I have two books out. One within a week and a half. Yeah, two books within a week and a half of each other, which is not good because now I have to kind of like market two books. And how do you do that? Not easily, because I'm not getting anybody to buy anything. It's like nobody wants it. Go figure. I've sold one copy, I think, and then I accidentally bought one myself. Accidentally, like hit the wrong button, and it's like, "Oop! I just purchased it." They said, "Welcome. I mean, thank you for your purchase." Like, oh well, I bought my own book. There you go. Which is funny because my son had just said to me, you know what? I said, "Oh, I sold the book," and he said, "You know, it doesn't count if you buy your own, right?" Nope. But it wasn't. I'm the second one. There you go. So yeah, I've got two copies sold, and one's to me. Not good, but it's a good book. And I've been using Chat GPT to teach myself marketing ideas and stuff like that. So then it gave me 25 promotional blurbs for my story. I always call them stories. It's 827 pages long, or 867 pages long or something like that in ebook format. 867 pages, like holy smokes. Yeah, so I'm trying to make it smaller. I've been having issues with my computer, so I couldn't what do you call it? Upload it and make it into the book. That's the word. I couldn't make it format it properly. That's what I'm looking for. I couldn't format it properly, so it's like I just put that on hold because I didn't want it to come out yet. I still want to, I have to promote my, trilogy, and I just got this brilliant well, I wouldn't call it brilliant. Brilliant for me. That's not a brilliant idea. With, what do you call it? The Odyssey coming out and all of that stuff, and I thought, "Hey, I'd like to write a story about Troy and all of that stuff." But, it's all been done before. However, you have to find something where it's different, and I believe I may have. And, yeah, I wanna take, because Priam had 50 sons and 50 daughters, and I thought, well, if I just take one of those kids, unknown, and, write a story about him and follow him through the, Trojan War, that would be, an interesting kind of a premise. But I can make them into novellas, and I thought I can make 12 stories over the course of the 10 years of the war. I can make 12 different stories out of that, and, I could make them into, part of the trilogy thing. I would have 4 books, which is pretty cool. They don't all have to be all out at once, like, whatever, right? But so after I finish reading, The Time Traveler, Beginner's Guide to Time Travel, I will be taking this to the restaurant and hopefully doing it live. The waitress is excited. My brother is indifferent, but willing to do it, because, we laugh a lot. But, how do you can't laugh and eat. So there will be moments where we're chewing. But she won't give us she won't put the order in until a certain period of time, and now it's going longer and longer, and where I said, I have a 10 o'clock writing. That's why reading. That's why I make it 10:15, so I give myself time. No, this time I didn't get out of the restaurant until 10 after 10 because, she put the order in 15 minutes after we gave it to her, and I went, "Hey, oh," she said, "Hey, should I put your order in yet?" I said, "You haven't done that yet?" She's like, just smiles, "No, sorry." And we can't get mad at her. We try to, but we can't. And, yeah, she's, uh, she's fun. She's funny. She's, talking to us about her niece. She says, I taught her to flick her hair, and when she walks, to walk with her nose up in the air, and we're like, "What the heck?" She's 4 and cute, of course, but 4-year-old isn't, right? Well, okay, I'm pretty sure there were some that weren't, but we don't say that, do we? Anyways, well, Melissa, it looks like it's just you and me, so I'm gonna read to you. I'm looking down at your little picture. I'm gonna read to you, and, hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you've been, like, listening all along, and I have to change the page here so I can, da, 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 da. Oh, yeah, I'm also almost finished my novella, The, Revolutionary, His Wife and Her Lover. I have one last section coming out on Saturday, and, that will be the end of it. Then I'm going to a new novella, and that's already written. I just have to redo the first chapter of it or whatever you wanna call it, section, part, or whatever, and that one is called Tarot Cards and Tea Leaves. That one, I mean, I don't give trigger warnings and shit like that because I'm old, and we never had that when I was younger, so I don't think that way. This one, I have to kinda give a sort of like a trigger warning, I guess, because it has to do with, what's that word? Child sexual abuse. That's you go, the expression or whatever it's called, right? Yeah, because the girl is, 15 and being abused. It's like, "Oh, well, yeah." Based on fact. Well, I guess everything is based on fact, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so It was a girl that I grew up with, and she was the girl that I played with when I was like 7, 8, 9 years old or whatever. And then I find out, oh, years and years later, that she was being abused by her brother, who was what do you call a rapist, convicted. Because apparently, after I moved away from the place that we were at, he raped my neighbor, and she was 13 or 14 at the time. So, yeah, not a nice guy. Well, not nice growing up with him as your brother, that's for sure. Not for her. Like, oof. Oh, I should move my microphone. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, so that story will be starting in 2 weeks. It's tarot cards and tea leaves. And it's called that because the neighbor across from me when I was a kid used to read your fortune. She wasn't a gypsy, but she was psychic. Very big psychic, very heavily psychic. She could she told the future, basically. She had visions and all of that stuff. Interesting. And so I based it on her, but I made her into a refugee from the war, and her husband was a refugee from the war, and they both come from different countries, and so the only language they have in common is English. They had to learn a language, and so they learned English, and not very well. They have a they have a goat. She has a goat, her pet goat, and when the character says, "What's the goat's name?" she says, "Dinner." That should tell you pretty soon what that's going to be, isn't it? One day it's going to be dinner. Okay. So, that being that, setting up that story, I have The Shield of Locksley out in ebook. I think it's 11.34, but that's the Canadian price. American price is 7.99, I believe. And I don't fix the price. That's what Amazon did. They picked that price, which is okay by me because I would have picked 7.99 as well. But my other one is 7.99, and that's based on the fact that it's 3 novellas that would be selling at $1.99 a piece, basically, something like that. If I were to sell them individually, I would sell them for $1.99. So, yeah, so I put them 3 together, and it's like 2, 4, 6. And it's like, okay, I made myself a little extra money. And there you go. And then that's it. I'm going to read now. Okay, I got to check and see. Are you still with me, Melissa? I'd hate to find out that you left. Okay, and here we go now. There. Chapter 23. Remember, Wit, the alter ego, if you want to call him that, got bit by a snake, but he's already, well, we know he's dead. There you go. It took 3 days for Wit to die. Jeline, naturally, was beside herself. I don't mean to lessen the tragedy of her loss by saying it like that, so callously, but I don't know how else to describe it. One doesn't say someone was beside themselves when the person they love most in the world dies. A part of me knows that saying she was beside herself belittles the whole thing, lessens it, and makes it into a cliche, if anything. But sometimes cliches are the only thing you can use to describe something as devastating as a death. And hers was a twofold loss, remember? Her brother had been swept over the falls and lost, and now Wit. When I suffered a similar loss in my life, I found I was unable to remove myself from that loss. And not just because the emotions were overwhelming, but because I needed time to heal. And believe me when I tell you that while suffering through such heartache, any loss is overwhelming. But from what I know, losing a spouse is like being amputated. I was only able to heal because I was given the time to heal. I was sent to counseling. I was given every opportunity that was available. Jeline was simply overwhelmed by everything that happened. She sat with her hands on her belly, stroking it, silent tears slipping down her face. She refused to eat, slept little, and more than once said she wished she could die as well. I think the only thing holding her from throwing herself into the river and letting the current take her over the falls was the unborn child she hugged. She wasn't going to have the opportunity to grieve properly. We discovered that neither Ricky or myself were beyond helpless when it came to making a fire or hunting for our dinner. Ricky had somehow managed to snag 3 fish, and while I attempted to scale and gut them, Ricky picked up with bow and 3 arrows. "Have you ever tried hunting with one of those?" I asked. He shook his head. "Good luck," I said. "Try not becoming someone's dinner." "At least I won't go down without a fight," he said, brandishing the longbow. I watched him leave. I didn't have a lot of confidence that he'd come back with anything, but at least he was putting in an effort. It was more than I could say for a lot of other men I've known. I guess men are all the same no matter where you go. They all talked with that false bravado of knowing that anything they say will never be put to the test. Out here, things are quite different. I watched Jeline sitting with her back to a tree, rubbing her naked belly. I took off the fur jacket she'd given me that I was still wearing and walked over to her, slipping it over her naked shoulders. She looked up at me and tried to smile, but I could see tears in her eyes. She was quick to wipe them away with the back of her hand. "I'm sorry, I should be over this," she said softly. "No," I said, squatting down beside her and taking hold of her hand. "You'll never be over this. He'll always be a part of you wherever you go. At least you have his child," I said, and she smiled. "That's more than my man left me," I said. "You?" I nodded. She was silent for a while, and then she looked at me. "I understand dying. My mother died when I was a child. My father died shortly after I took Wit to my bed. I wasn't there when he died, but I still have a sense that he hasn't left me. I wish I could say the same for Jarrell. I feel his loss more than my father's. Do you think being there makes it different? Wit might have saved him if he'd been quicker to react. Is that it? Is it that? Sorry. Or do you think I feel his loss all the more because we failed him?" "We call that survivor's guilt," I said. "Is that what I am now? A survivor?" We're all survivors when you get right down to it. When you lose your mother and your father, you feel that your life will never be the same. And in some respects, that's true. But at the same time, life goes on, and you find that you can go on, that you have to go on, or life will leave you behind. It's the same with everyone else you lose in your life, but none of them compare to what you've lost. You've lost your mate, your spouse, the love of your life, like you. I nodded, like me. "But I don't want to get over it. I'm not telling you to," I said. I was quick to say. God, that'd be the last thing I'd ever ask anyone to do. I would have scratched the eyes out of anyone who told me to get over it. It's not something you get over. It's something you accept as having happened, but you'll always second guess yourself. What if I made him go to the doctor the first time I saw the blood instead of accepting his excuses? There, you see? Blaming myself all over again. That's something else she's going to have to learn. There'll always be triggers. The fact that you can feel someone else's loss shows you have empathy, which means that you have compassion and that you aren't as broken as you may have thought you were. Well, that's what my counselor told me. I wanted to believe it. I still want to, but I had no one I could share my compassion with. I'd isolated myself from my friends, even my family. "I know nothing of you," she said after a moment. "I know nothing of your world," I said. "Is my world that different?" I looked around. I could see the distant snow-capped mountains, the Vandals, according to the map Jarrell had in his pouch, and the greenery, which made little or no sense at all. If this was Colorado, the terrain shouldn't look like it did. It should be hard scrubland, but this, this was all green grass and tall reaching trees. There were fir trees, willows, aspen, and birch. There were predators, and it seemed to me that the natural order was more than just a little fucked up. How? How did all of this happen? Did we go too far with our global warming and destroy the planet? Is this Earth? Is this what they meant when they warned us about a hole in the ozone layer? Is it? She smiled. Is your world so different? I said, looking around again. I nodded. Very. Ricky showed up at our little makeshift camp just as the sun was setting over the Vandals. The clouds were pink and gold, the shadows lengthening. He was carrying a rabbit and looking proud of himself. He stopped when he saw me. Please, I said, trying not to feel uncomfortable. You never looked through National Geographic when you were a kid? Or Playboy? I don't know what to say, he said. Or what am I supposed to do with this? He added, dropping the rabbit beside the fire pit we'd made. I guess I should give you my shirt. Do you want to get cold later? What about you? Aren't you going to be cold? I'll stay by the fire. Jeline pushed herself up from the tree awkwardly, leaning against it for a moment before perking herself up and forcing a smile. She walked to the fire and picked up the rabbit. She also picked up the knife we'd taken from Whit earlier. She hesitated a moment as she held the weapon, then taking a deep breath, set about skinning the rabbit. I watched her closely, thinking it was probably something I should learn to do myself. It didn't take long for her to cut the rabbit up and put it into a pot to stew. She went into the woods and came back out a short while later with a handful of herbs and some tubers I didn't recognize. I thought it might be better not to ask her what they were, but I told myself later, when we were eating the stew, the next time she went off into the woods to get whatever it was she dropped into the pot, I'd be going with her. The sun was locked behind the mountains by the time the stew was ready. We ate in silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. I looked at Jeline, seeing tears in her eyes as she picked at her food. I thought if she didn't eat for the sake of her unborn child, she wouldn't be eating at all. I guess it's time I came out and told you what's going on, Ricky said, dropping the small battered bowl he was eating out of on the ground beside him. He looked at his hands for a moment, then bit the end off a fingernail, spitting it into the fire and giving me a lame smile. No time like the present, I said, feeling stupid even as I said it. I just want to say, right from the get-go, I don't know much more than you. What I do know is more than confusing and hard to believe, so bear with me, okay? I nodded, said okay, and waited. I was supposed to go there to see my brother. Bobby, I said, the one they killed. Yeah, he said, hesitating before starting in again. Well, him and Jimmy, he's the one that left, I said to Jeline. With that girl, the one with the red hair. I think she knows who you mean, Ricky said, but I'll get back to her in a minute. All of this is supposed to be because of my dad, actually. That's why we're here. He says that he got that wristband, the bracelet, from his dad. I never believed him, but now I'm thinking, what? Maybe? Anyway, neither here nor there. When we were kids, he told us he could travel through time with it. As I got older, I told myself, like my brothers, that I didn't believe him. And then I left home and went off to college. I just assumed that was the end of it. Then my mom died and my dad just drifted away. He has, whatever, dementia. So I guess a lot of what he said to us later in his life didn't make a lot of sense to us, but he used to tell us these stories when we were kids, see? We all remembered them. He was always the hero in the story, of course, otherwise, why tell them, right? He even had a name for this place. He called it Amarusa. Yes, Amarusa, Jeline said, nodding. I know that name. My dad said he had a wife and 3 children here, 2 boys and a girl. He looked at Jeline. And now they're both gone, she said. Your older brother's dead, too, I said. It wasn't a question, and she just nodded, obviously not wanting to talk about it. From what I can remember, and this is the part that gets confusing for me, and will for as long as I am here, I suppose, or until I figure this shit out, which will probably be never, but you're his daughter. We were supposed to come here, this is the future, by the way, and contact him because he was supposed to have all the answers. All the answers to what? She said. What were you supposed to ask him? Not me. Jen. She's some sort of time guardian or something like that. A Time Lord. Like that English show, I asked. What English show? Doctor Who. Never heard of it. But Jen, I mean, the real Jen, was my sister-in-law in the past. Remember? I told you, he said, and I nodded, waiting for him to go on. But Time Guardian Jen somehow slipped into real Jen's mind. The Jen I've known pretty well all my life and took over her body as well as her mind. She was still Bobby's wife. Hell, they had kids together. I don't know if it was Time Guardian Jen or the real Jen who had the kids, but I guess it doesn't matter now, does it? I thought you said your sister-in-law was a big girl, I reminded him. She wasn't just a big girl, she was fat, he said with a laugh. Fat with a capital F. You know, the kind that when she sat around the house, she sat around the house. Do you know what I mean? But this Jen, the one you know, Time Guardian Jen, she was sort of looking out for us. Apparently, in the future, something happened and someone wants to change things. Whose future? Yours or mine, Jeline said. And what exactly do you mean by change things? Change things, I asked. Again, it all goes back to my grandfather. According to Time Guardian Jen, he's the one who started it all. I think he's the one who invented time travel. I also think he's the one you're going to have, he added, looking at Jeline. Don't ask me how I figured that out, he said, when he saw I was going to interrupt him again, because the grandfather I remember was comatose for the last 10 years of his life. I think, now don't quote me on this, but I think when they time traveled, it looked like they were sleeping, or like they were sleeping, or maybe comatose. I think when my grandfather was lying in bed all that time, he was time traveling. I think he was here. You know, you've already lost me, right? I'm doing the best I can. So, your father, you said he was always telling you stories about what it was like over here, that he had children, my brothers and me. That means he had a wife. Was your mother in the past the same woman? Jeline asked, and I wondered why I never thought of that. Ricky shook his head. I don't think so. All I know from what Jen told me is that he had a daughter. You, he said, looking at Jeline again. But my father's dead, she said. He's what? I could see that it came as a shock to him. You didn't know that, I asked. When we came through that hole, or portal, I guess you'd call it, the first time, something went wrong. I ended up in Wit's Head much the same way time guide Jen was in my sister-in-law's head, except I couldn't take over his body the way Jen did. You were in her head, he said, and nodded at Jeline. Then how come I don't remember any of it? She asked. Can't say. But the three of you were attacked almost as soon as all of that happened. And believe me, everything happened all at once. Jarrell was killed when he ran to look into the valley. Is that why you yelled at him? Jeline asked. Yes, I wanted him to stay where he was instead of going to the cliff. After that, you were taken captive. After he was killed, I mean. Our arrival prevented all of that because we were able to warn them. We did little more than just warn them, I said. Yeah, but later, Jarrell still died, he said, and I could see he still couldn't believe it. I don't know if that's how it's supposed to work, but I'm thinking maybe it is, because he died that first time. Maybe that's why he went over the falls. If he wasn't in the last one, I mean, because he died, how could he be in this one? Timeline, I mean, he added, thinking maybe I wasn't paying attention. But Wit didn't die, I pointed out. We don't know that, not really, he added, looking at Jeline. Wit didn't make it through the portal with us, he explained to her, as if she didn't really already know that. I wanted to tell her I was sorry for his blatant condescension, but didn't know if she'd understand what I meant, which is goddamn condescending, I told myself. What what's that tell you? He asked, looking at me again. What if he died trying to get in the portal? What if he wasn't supposed to go through it because he wasn't supposed to meet the other him? What are you talking about? I said. What if It's some future quantum physics shit we don't understand because it's some future quantum physics shit that hasn't been discovered yet. We don't know what the rules of physics are. Hell, I don't even know if I can spell it. So maybe that's why he died. Because he died in the other timeline we were in, like Jarrell. And you're basing this on what? I asked. Isn't that what my brother said? God, I don't even know what he said anymore, but I'm pretty sure if Whit didn't die back there, he wouldn't have died here or something like that. It's the only thing that makes sense. I'm telling you, I was in his head. I know what he was thinking, and there's no way he wasn't coming through that portal with us. He was willing to take on the whole slaver army just to get back to her. But if I was in your head, how come you don't remember? I asked her. I, lo- uh, I looked at her sitting in front of the fire. It was a moment before she looked up at me, and when she did, she was staring at me with a shimmer in her eyes, threatening to spill over. A shimmer of tears in her eyes, threatening to spill over. My God, I thought, she does remember. I wondered if she remembered it all. I wondered if she remembered that she died. Why do you say this is a different timeline than the one before? I asked Ricky, turning to look at him. I was afraid looking at her would push me over the edge and I'd tell Ricky everything I remembered. Because when we came through that portal, we stopped Giral from being killed and Jeline from being taken by the slavers. So does that mean all that stuff that happened before didn't happen? Is that the gist of it? I don't know, he said, with equal amounts of frustration and whatever you call that whiny voice guys have when they don't know the answer to something. He sat and stared at me for a moment. Don't you remember anything about being in her head? All I know is it's nothing I want to remember, I said, thinking the tone of my voice would be enough for him to drop the subject. Let's just leave it at that, I added, in case he didn't understand. He didn't. It might be important, he said. As far as I know, she was with her father. How do you know that? I mean, he might have been with her. I don't know, I said. I get the feeling they were separated. In the other timeline, was she pregnant? What's that have to do with anything? He asked, taken off guard. I think that's because he had to stop and think about it. Because I didn't get the feeling she was pregnant when I was in her head. So you do remember. I told you I'm not talking about it, I said with an edge to my voice. Was she pregnant? I asked again and looked down at her, and she was staring into the flames. I don't know. I can't remember, he said, sounding even more frustrated. He began shaking his head as he turned around and looked up at the night sky. It was so alive and vibrant, a splatter of stars that looked more like a child painting, the kind where you use a toothbrush dipped in water paint. The light and the flames distorted his shadows, stretching it so that it faded into nothing as the light of the flames dimmed. I looked up in time to see a meteor streaking across the sky. I mean, I remember things, lots of things, he said, and then I lose them. I don't think Wit said anything about it, so no, I don't think she was pregnant. So you were surprised to see that she was when you saw her? Yes, just like you were surprised when you found out her father died. She never said how long ago it was, he pointed out, and I looked at her. He died when I joined with Wit, Jeline said. Ricky rubbed his hands on his face, shaking his head slowly. This is more confusing than I thought it would be, he said. Does it matter? I asked after a moment. What do you mean? We're stuck here, both of us. I lost a bracelet going over the falls, and Wit was wearing the other one. No, two. He was wearing two of them. We have no way of getting back to our own time. We're stuck in this time, like Billy Pilgrim in Slaughterhouse 5. No, I said, he was unstuck in time. Not that I ever knew what that meant. I didn't read it. I tried, but I didn't like it, so I put it down. Like a lot of things in life, I thought, I just put them down. Okay. Chapter 24. The next day dawned bright and golden. The shadows on the mountains looked like they'd somehow been folded into the cracks, peaks, and crevices. Crenellated comes to mind for some reason, but just as quickly faded as the sun rose. I used to watch sunrises, a lot of sunrises, when Roger was in hospice. I'd sit in one of the chairs they had outside, one of those big swoop back Adirondack chairs, drinking coffee and smoking my cigarettes, which I suppose is quite ironic considering Roger was inside dying of cancer. It was the best part of my morning, though. It was the reason I used to work nights, just so I could sit with him in the morning. He'd sit in a wheelchair and watch the sunrise with me. When he got too sick to sit in the wheelchair, I sat beside his bedside, staring out the window. And now look at me, I thought. Here I am, lost somewhere in the future, watching the sun come up over the mountains. All I need now is a coffee and a cigarette. I was grateful Ricky had given me his shirt last night, but then he slept pressed up against me to keep the chill away from himself. I could feel his arms wrapping around me in the middle of the night. One hand slid inside the open shirt, and his hand cupped my tit. It felt like nostalgia, and I didn't want him to let me go because that's how Roger fell asleep with me when we first got married, before the cancer. It felt strange waking up in the morning and asking him if he wanted his shirt back. I used to wear one of Roger's old shirts to sleep in. I was still trying to grasp what Ricky had told me last night. He was assuming that Gerald we met here was dead. It was based on the fact that he died while Ricky was in Whit's mind. That was a different past, though. A different timeline, as he'd like to say. That was the part I was having trouble with. That's where all the confusion started. I asked him how he knew this was a different timeline, and he said he'd figured it out when I asked him if Jeline was pregnant. That was a light bulb moment for me. He'd also said he was convinced the wit on the other side must have died trying to get to this side. I wondered how that might have happened. That's when I remembered seeing a bright flash of light out of the corner of my eye. I hadn't thought about it too much. The one thing I'd noticed being inside the portal was that the sparks and flashing lights that were noticeable on the outside weren't there on the inside. So what was that flash? Did it have to do with the bracelet he was wearing? Is that why he died? The bracelet wasn't set for his DNA and it rejected him like a body refusing a transplant? But then I remembered that I'd worn the other bracelet going through, and it hadn't killed me. If the wit we knew on this side died because the wit we left behind on the other side, was there a similarity with his death? Is it possible he'd been bitten by a snake just as he was about to enter the portal? It seemed improbable, but stranger things have been known to happen, like that flash. The last person through would have been Jimmy. I promised myself to ask him if he saw anything unusual, because, as far as I was concerned, everything was unusual. It was quite obvious that Ricky was having flashbacks. Was that how he knew what was going to happen? I didn't want to ask him in case he asked the same thing. I looked around and saw that Jeline was at the stream washing pots and pans. I dropped my voice and told him I wasn't sharing what happened to Jeline, and I meant it. It was difficult enough for me to accept that the poor woman was being brutally raped and beaten regularly, almost nightly. And now, knowing that she remembered what happened, it was just too much. I looked at the sun as it crested the horizon and stood up, making my way to the raft. We decided last night that we'd continue downriver. We'd continue on down the river. There was nothing for us to go back to and no reason to follow the slavers. Ricky said we'd stay with Jeline until the child was born. He didn't like the idea of abandoning her to face it alone. All I could think of was that we needed her more than she needed us. I helped Ricky drag the raft back into the river. Jeline loaded it with our limited supplies, and we set off down the stream with a makeshift rudder Ricky had fashioned out of a small sapling and weaving some branches together. He'd spent most of the morning working on it with a silent diligence that I was unprepared for. I didn't know he even knew how to make something like that. But I was grateful all the same. Jeline sat in the front of the raft, away from us, warning him about hidden rocks and other debris that might cause a problem. Jeline said the rapids downriver were not as bad as those we'd already come through, and that Whit had felt confident we'd make it through with no trouble. Ricky said he was happy hearing that, and then added that it wasn't as if we had a lot of choice in the matter. The river was wider, and the slope of land proved to be more gentle grade. The rapids were shallow, with more of a washboard ride than what was yesterday. There were moments when the current picked up, with white eddies and plumes of spray washing over us, but like I said, nothing like we'd encountered yesterday. Ricky lifted the rudder out of the water. I guess he knew he wouldn't be able to steer, and reversed the rudder under his arm, using the pole to try and keep us away from the larger rocks and more in the middle of the river. Jeline said that Whit had climbed a tree to look out over the valley we were entering and said it was wide open land that looked encouraging as far as game went. It sounded promising, but then we didn't have Whit anymore, did we? I looked at Ricky standing on the small platform, trying to push off against the larger rocks and tangled up trees. He'd tied a length of rope around his waist and secured it to the raft. It made sense, considering. Jeline told him to stay away from the trees. There were things in there, she said. And the marshes, she added. Just stay in the middle as much as you can. What's in the marshes? I asked. It's all fucked up here now, Ricky said. The whole world's a different place. There were these volcanoes all around the world that sort of went off at the same time. Well, not all at the same time, but close. There was one in Yellowstone. Did you know Yellowstone was a volcano? A super volcano, I said with a nod. I didn't know it. What do you think Old Faithful is? I guess I never thought about it. I thought it was just a geyser. It never once crossed your mind that it was steam being let off. Nope. You don't read much, do you? Sure I do. Fantasy mostly. I liked Tarzan when I was younger. Tarzan. That's your literary recommendation? I read Dune. Oh, and MASH. The movie? No, the book. I read the book. It was better than the movie. They usually are. Not The Godfather. 1 and 2, he smiled. That's definitely a movie that was better than the book. So, anyway, back to this volcano thing, I said. Yeah, well, Jen told me that all these volcanoes went up pretty well at the same time. There was huge tidal waves as a result, and then, because of the volcanoes, there were earthquakes. Some of the biggest faults just collapsed, and everything changed in the blink of an eye. Those mountains are probably the Rockies and the Sierra Nevada all pushed up together. The entire west coast is gone. All of it. And then there was a mini ice age. I don't know how long it lasted, but things got real fucked up then. What about Europe? Don't know, he said. But all the animals all over the world, all those animals in zoos and game farms, they don't have us as their natural enemy anymore. To them, we're game. A lot of them came over this way when the temperatures dropped. Most of them are probably gone, but some of them adapted, and they bred. So what's in the water? Hippos, crocs, big crocs. I remember seeing them. What do you mean? Haven't you? He asked. What? Don't try to tell me you just don't remember anything about being in her head, he said, looking at Jeline, watching the water and pointing out the larger rocks. We'd bounce off them and Ricky would try to keep us straight. There were a few times I was sure he was going to break the steering oar. I told you I wasn't going to talk about what happened, I replied. I know, he said, stepping to the side and pushing off on the rocks. He looked like he knew what he was doing. He looked capable. You do this sort of thing often? I asked. It's funny. I can remember him doing things from when I was in his head. I shot that rabbit yesterday with one shot. I don't know how to use a bow, but when I picked it up, I just pulled and shot, and everything smells so fresh even now. I knew where it was hiding. I'm telling you, I could smell it. It felt like I was wit. I looked at Jeline sitting in the front of the raft, one hand rubbing her belly. She turned her head and back and looked back at us, almost as if she knew we were talking about her. There was no doubt in my mind that she looked curious. I knew she was as lost as I was when it came to figuring out what was going on. It's not like he was a part of me, he went on, not like the way it was when we were inside their heads. It's more like a muscle reflex or muscle memory, maybe, whatever you call it. I'm thinking or maybe hoping that a part of me absorbed a part of him. If it's going to help us survive in this place, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm happy for you. I am, but do you think I want to remember what she went through? I said at last. Do you think she does? I didn't mean it to sound like that. I meant they all went through something. Her brother died. She was taken as a slaver, as a slave. She probably thought Wit was dead too. Still, you must have seen things. You mean like those times you said when you came out of Wit's mind? I asked. Yeah, it was usually when he was asleep. It was the only time I had to try and figure out what was going on. If I didn't if I didn't have Jen there, I think I would have went nuts. I mean, he looked at me and nodded. Okay, he said, I get it now. You didn't have anyone to talk to or explain things to you. No, I didn't. I want you to know that we're not stuck here, he said, and I wanted to believe him. I hated the idea of thinking this is what life had in store for me. No, I'm serious. That baby she's carrying, he's the one who invents time travel. The baby, I said. Why didn't you mention that sooner? When we were when we first got here, Jimmy didn't know how to use his bracelet, and he got lost in time. He ended up thousands of years in the future. He became some sort of time master, a traveler. He says he figured out how we can all get back at the same time and to the same time. He said he knows how to get us back home. I don't want to disappoint you, I said, but your brother Jimmy, he doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me. And here you go saying he just got lost in time. But it's more than that. I get the feeling there's something he's not telling us. Why do you think that? Let's just say it's a feeling I get. I was a cop, remember? I always go with my gut whenever I pull someone over. It saved me a couple of times. And do you feel the same way about Jen? She was your sister-in-law. No, the other one. She was in my sister-in-law's head, much the same as we were in theirs, he said, nodding at Jeline. Only she couldn't take over. She, Jen, the real Jen, told me my ex wanted to talk to her. I don't know if secret agent Jen knew about Mandy calling her because the real Jen, the Jen I knew, refused to meet with her. So my ex came over because she was taken over by someone in the future, much the same way Jen was. So both you and your sister-in-law and your ex-wife, is it? He nodded. Both of them are agents of time? That's a good name. I like that. I'm going to use that. What do you mean you're going to use that for what? When we get back. I'm not going to do what my dad did, he said with a laugh. I'm going to write it all down and sell it as a book. You're going to write a book? It didn't take us long to negotiate the small rapids. After, we found ourselves locked in a gentle current taking us downstream. There were twisted willow trees lining the riverbanks on both sides, and I could see wide open fields beyond, which was obviously what Wit had seen from the tree he'd climbed. The heavy clouds of the day before were gone. Instead, there was a bright blue sky and tall, cumulus clouds selfishly guarding the horizon. What's that? I asked, looking towards the ever-darkening horizon. Ricky looked, and then stepped off the platform and picked up the binoculars that were in the pack. He looked and, cursing softly, handed the binoculars to me. He pushed on the rudder and the raft caught the current, moving us to the left bank. Sandstorm, he said. We got to get off the water and find some shelter somewhere. We'll tie the boat up and hope it's still here when we get back. And you expect to find the same place for us you expect to find some place for us to hide? You'd better hope we do, because getting caught in something like that will kill us, he said. It doesn't matter what fucking timeline this is. Dead is dead. Jeline was quick to jump out of the raft, pulling on the lead and trying to get it out of the water. It only took a moment with all three of us pulling. Ricky used a long piece of rope and began lashing the raft in between three trees. I walked to the edge of the willow and looked out over the open plain. I saw something glittering in the distance and turned the binoculars in that direction. I looked at Jeline. Do you know how to use these? Of course. Can you tell me what that is? I pointed off to the left. It looks like it might be buildings, she said a moment later. That's what I thought. What do you think? She dropped the binoculars and shook her head. Nothing good in there, I can tell you. If we stay out here, we'll die, I said. I don't see that we have much of a choice. Ricky approached, the pack on his back, the longbow in his hand, an arrow notched in the and ready. He looked muscular with the pack on his back, on his shoulders, and I tried to hide my surprise. There might be cover over that way, I said, pointing. I gave him the binoculars. Looks like something. Doesn't matter, doesn't. We can't afford to get caught out here. How far do you suppose it is? We might just make it, I said, and Jeline agreed, looking over her shoulder at the darkening horizon. We set off for what we thought might be leftover remnants of a city. It could have been a factory for all I know. The trees had grown unchecked for hundreds of years, and while they obscured the view, they also grew down to where we were heading. We followed what looked to be a game trail, and while Jeline told us to keep an eye out for predators that might be hiding in the trees, I thought, nature being nature, they were probably hiding out in the old buildings. I followed Ricky, and Jeline came up behind me as we approached a large drainage tunnel. There was a pool of water in front of it, rippling in the wind coming up from behind. I could feel the shirt I was wearing starting to flutter, and tied it together. There we go. That's that. Sandstorm approaching. And now we get, after that, chapter 25, in which we meet something different. It's part 6, and we go to the year 3523 ATC, which means after the cataclysm. And I'm not going to tell you any more than that, because that would be a spoiler. And let me see, that's 25 and 26. And that brings us, okay, there's 27. And there, 28. And we're going to have, how far? How many? 29, and that's pretty close to the end, I would think. 30. Okay, and then 31. So we're getting really close. 6. That's 3 weeks. And the epilogue. So 4 weeks. 4 weeks. I think I can handle that. And then I'm going to highlight that, okay, because that seems like a smart idea, so I don't forget where the hell I am. And then we're going away from here. So far away from me. Oh, sorry. I can't stop myself. Once in a while, I get a little confused. Okay. And now we're back. Oh, look, I have 5 people now. Or 4, maybe. 4. Well, actually, that looks like 3. Okay. Joanne, Benter, and Melissa. And me. That makes 4. Okay, so, oh my goodness, that took almost an hour. That was pretty good. That's because I talked. I talk a lot. I talk about my book. I talk about my plans, my other books, that kind of stuff. I will be, I will be doing breakfast with my brother, and so this chat will be live from the restaurant. It looks like in 4 weeks. I have to tell the waitress 'cause, she's already got her lipstick planned. She wants to be a star. I don't know if it's gonna work. We'll have to see. We'll just have to check and see how it works one day. I have to go to the store today and buy myself something that's going to hold my little iPhone. Not a phone. Not a phone. My little whatever you wanna call it. iPod, I guess. We'll call it that. Yeah, because I don't have anything on it that I could use as a phone. Ooh, I can't even text on it. I have nothing on there. Just the camera and access to, Substack, so that way I can do live, and that's the only reason I have it. It's the wife's old phone, and, this is my, tripod. It broke, so that's why I need to get a new one. I have to take this off, take the take the tape off, and I'm buying a new one of these. This was a selfie stick. Yeah, my daughter gave us that for I can't even remember when it was. Probably some, anniversary present of all things. Yeah, and then, I never used it for 3 years, and then finally I thought, "Hey, I can use it for this," and it worked, but it's so cheap. It was like one of those $1.99 things. Yeah, it's so cheap it just fell apart, so that's not good. So I have to go to Staples, London Drugs, whatever it is, and see if I could find something that'll hold this, and, then we can do the live with my brother, and, I told you, you're gonna have to watch yourself because, we swear a bit, quite a bit. Well, I do. I swear at him and with him and to him and whatever. He won't. I know he won't because, he'll be self-consciously thinking that, there's, mixed company, and we were raised not to swear in mixed company. But things change as you get older because you find out that the mixed company swears more than you do. Like, oh, there you go. Like, yeah, I mean, my wife swears like a trucker. My God, she is ridiculous. That's her nickname at work, trucker. And she's the boss. Go figure. Or as we say, go finger. And I'm going to say, I'm sorry, Purple. Purple joined just in time to say goodbye. I have 2 minutes left because this is an hour long, or I try to be an hour long. Sometimes I go over. But in the meantime, you can get my book trilogy, my ebook trilogy, 3 short stories, or 3 novellas, I should say, that take place in Italy, 1 in Rome, 1 in Montepulciano, and and the other one in Lake Como. 3 different stories, 3 different times. Interesting. Yeah, and we like it. I like it. And the other one is The Shield of Locksley, which takes place as Camelot is coming to a close, where the knights are all old, older, and we meet young Locksley and his uncle Grummer, whose best friend is Sir Bedivere. And the reason why his best friend is Sir Bedivere is because Sir Bedivere is the one who throws Excalibur back into the Lady of the Lake, so he survives the final battle. And Grummer survives the final battle because he doesn't fight in the final battle. He lost his leg in the battle before that. So he's recovering, if you want to call it that. Lancelot actually survives the battle as well. But we, I guess you didn't know that. Maybe you did. He ends up dying in a monastery as an old man. And Guinevere goes to a convent. It's like, yeah, well, Arthur dies by Modred's hand. Yeah. No spoiler alerts. This has been out there for 700 years. If you haven't read it, that's not my problem, right? Not my fault. But the Shield of Locksley takes all of those people, all of those characters, makes them old, disgruntled. Lamorak is a psychopathic rapist of all things, and considered to be one of the greatest knights in Camelot, one of the three best. Lancelot, Tristan, and Lamorak are the three best knights, and Lamorak is a piece of work. And then there's the Orkney Knights, which are Gawain and his brothers. His one youngest brother is Modred, the bastard son of Arthur. So yeah. So I wrote about all of those guys, and I made them all older, except for Gawain and because Gawain, unknown to some of you, or maybe like who knows, maybe you did know it. Gawain was Arthur's esquire at one time. So Arthur is now old, and so Gawain is the next generation. Gawain is about 35-ish. Everybody else is younger. Gareth, I should say, the youngest of the Orkneys, is 21. The same age as our young hero, Locksley, who's 21. Locksley comes from the north, beyond the wall, as they say, the wall being Hadrian's Wall. And he is the son of a prince who died during the onset of the War of the 12 Kings. So there you have the basic background. And his uncle is Grummer Grummerson, a Scottish knight. I froze. There you go. I'm back again. Le Morte d'Arthur, yeah. Grummer Grummerson is mentioned in Le Morte d'Arthur once. So I took that and I ran with it. And then I took Palamedes, who was a Saracen, and then called him a Parthian. And he rides to Camelot overland on his camel, which is a different thing as well. I wanted to make things different. So he has a camel. Nobody's ever seen camels. So that's cool. And let me see. Grummer learns to read and write Latin when him and Bedivere partake in mercenary work, and they travel across land. They cross the English Channel. They go into Brittany, and then they just ride. They go to Rome. They work for the Pope, I guess. And at one time, what's his name? Bedivere is injured and is recuperating. And in his recuperating phase, that's when Grummer learns to read and write Latin. So he's an intelligent man. And Palamedes is also reads, and he goes into the slave markets in Constantinople. He's not actually into the slave markets. He's going into a bookseller, but the bookseller, he can see the slave markets. And in the slave market, he sees a beautiful woman, and he goes and buys her. And that's his wife. He buys her and sets her free. And then they end up falling in love and getting married. And there you go. Happily ever after, sort of. And that's basically the background of some of these characters. Read the book. Read the book. It's like it's interesting. It's tragic. It's got everything in there. Got comedy, pathos, humor, that kind of stuff. Got tragedy, big tragedy. Can't tell you because that would be a spoiler. And I'm not giving any spoilers away. And yeah, so that's for sale as an ebook for $7.99 American, $11.39 or 49 or whatever Canadian, because I am Canadian. There we are. And I think that is going to be the end of it. So I'm going to say arrivederci Ciao for now. I will see you next week at the same bat time and the same bat channel. So for After Breakfast with my brother, I am your host, Ben Woestenburg, and I am saying ciao for now and adieu.